What's up, you guys?
Hello.
Hello, I'm Logan LaMaster.
I'm Tiffany Walker.
Why do we both have low voices, you might ask? Because it's Halloween!
It's Halloween, baby! We're
Yes.
spookified right now.
We're spookified. I'm so scary. I'm Rosie the Riveter. She's so scary.
Feminism!
I hated that. Rhymes with the same bit. I can't.
I'm dressed as the gay son of Satan.
Just as scary.
Got a little,
Feminism, right?
Yeah, no, that is. I got a little white dress shirt on. I got my eye makeup on. I FaceTimed Tiffany earlier, guys, and she was one of the first things she said was, "You look scary."
You did look scary. Because I forgot, we were dressing up, and I was like, oh, you look horrifying. You not slept in days? You good?
I'm sad I couldn't wear my my devil horns for this recording.
Oh, you could have wore it over top of your little...
Over the headphones?
Yeah, over the headphones.
Like,
it's like so dumb. It's like Over the Hedge, but over the headphones. The Over the Hedge characters have a podcast.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
That's basically us. I'm kind of like the squirrel from Over the Hedge.
You're so right. What does that make me? I don't... Is there a turtle? Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say you're the turtle. That's what you're getting.
I have anxiety just like the turtle. Matchers!
I love it.
I love it, too.
Oh my god. So, last week, we talked about... I remembered for you.
Yes.
What is it?
The train.
The train.
That's all I got.
The great train robbery of, I think, 1963?
One of those years, you know.
Yes.
I was just telling Logan how strange it is and how awesome that I was watching a new episode of the show on YouTube called Watcher, and they had a train episode, and they also made a bit about the Polar Express. And I was so excited.
Which gives way more reason for Ryan and Shane to please hit us up to collaborate.
Hit us up, my dudes.
Please.
It'd be such a fun time. I'm just saying.
No, it would be really fun. I think we've had stuff like that happen before. Wasn't there one week you and I released an episode, and then the next week I think BuzzFeed Unsolved did the same exact case, and we were like,
yes.
What?
I'm trying to think of, is it La Llorona or was it a different one?
Was
it way earlier?
I think it was during season one before we were a podcast. I think it was Bella and the Witch Elm.
Oh,
wasn't it?
Yes. That might be
I think it was. I was just like, what? This
That's
is crazy.
Exciting.
I just I love the kind of stuff we got going on with that. And we're also we would love to hear from you guys on our Instagram at the Mystery Files _. We're hoping to do some more stuff that is I think we were talked about outside of just true crime and paranormal.
Yes.
Trying to dig into some other cryptic fun, just because we really like doing this. And
yes, we just want to keep our options completely open. Nothing is too crazy.
Nothing's too crazy for us.
Yes.
And we have something in the works coming soon.
We do. Just keep your eye out. We're not gonna keep your eye out for Selena.
Too much.
But just saying, keep your eye out. Something crazy's coming soon.
Something's coming. I'm very excited about it. It's gonna be a good time.
I'm not gonna give it too much away, but I'm excited.
All right, so this week it is Tiffany's turn for our Halloween episode, which I'm going to release this on Halloween, by the way.
Happy Halloween!
All right. Are you ready to get into it?
Yes, drum roll, please.
Okay, let me take a little sip of
my
Red Bull.
I want to sip too. Wait.
Red Bull sip. Clink.
Okay.
Delicious.
I got really stressed. I know we're no longer a radio show, but the idea of dead air makes me want to throw up. If it's quiet for a second, I'm like, Cole's going to come after us and murder us.
He's going to be like, oh my God, what has happened?
He's on your podcast. You had 2 seconds of dead air. What were you doing? And I was like, sipping my Red Bull.
That was so scary. It was like, no dead air. It can never happen.
If there's dead air, it's dead air.
I think there was one time, during the radio show, we had a bath, you had to go to the bathroom, or I did or something, and you ended up just talking for a while, so you were like, so.
Oh, I remember. And I literally had nothing to talk about, and I was like, so, the weather, huh? Good times. We don't have to worry about that now.
And we also are way over our original radio show time, because it was a 35-minute show.
I don't know
and
how we were stressed. Literally, I'm trying to keep it down to under
our episodes
hour.
Average an hour now.
If they're mine, an hour 20, if we're lucky. I gotta stop myself, and that's why I think it's only best if I get my drum roll now, because she's a long one. You ready?
Go.
Oh, this week on the Mystery Files, we'll be presenting the case of the mysteries of the Titanic.
The Titanic.
The Titanic.
Oh my God, I love the Titanic.
Also, I would just like to say that we rescheduled to do this episode, and the day that we were supposed to do this episode on, I was watching the Titanic. because it just so happened to be on TV.
There you go.
When I was in Nebraska.
Nebraska.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it's meant to be that I have to do this case because I watched it in Nebraska when I should have been here doing the episode.
Well, I can't believe that's another case. I'm like, how have we never done it before?
I know.
Wow.
It's just about mystery surrounding Miss Titanic.
Goodness.
So I love it. So let's shoot to the intro. So all this information is brought to you by History.com and RD.com. So here we go. Pivotal. Wow, I'm already off to a rough start. This Red Bull's...
It's already sinking like the ship.
I'm sinking, guys. Oh, hi, Luna. Anyway, pivotal. Wow, can I not say pivotal? Pivotal events. I'm gonna stop saying that word. Have a way of it. Wow, I can't read, Logan. Pivotal. Is this a sad word? Pivotal events have a way of attracting harmful myths and conspiracy theories, and this is especially true when it comes to the Titanic disaster. The Titanic was a luxury British steamship that sank in the early hours of April 15th, 1912, after striking an iceberg, leading to the deaths of more than 1,500 passengers and crew. Everyone agrees that a luxury liner set sail on April 10th, 1912, and sank 5 days later, taking the lives of around 1,500 of the 2,223 aboard. But that's pretty much where the consensus ends. There are many things left unknown in the story of this unsinkable ship, and this is where many conspiracies arise, and yet what really happened may always remain a mystery. So, crazy stuff.
I feel like the Titanic is definitely in the world consensus, maybe like definitely nationally to at least America, is like one of the biggest like conspiracy theories or most theorized type of ideas out there.
Like, I genuinely think like this definitely happened. It was a very like crazy tragedy, but I do think there's a lot of things surrounding it that are just a little weird.
I've heard a few things, so I'm excited to like hear like what in depth like what some of the theories are in those ideas.
Yes, but first, let's get into the history of it a little bit. Let's start painting a picture to everyone around here. You ready?
You mean like one of your French girls?
Too soon. It's
too
the
soon
movie.
for Titanic reference.
Too soon. Also, we have a really sweet cat along with us today.
She wants to do the podcast with us.
Yeah, she's sitting right beside me in my Red Bull. She wants to tell the story of the history of the Titanic. So here we go. The Royal Mail ship RMS Titanic was designed to be one of the greatest achievements of an era known as the Gilded Age. The transatlantic steamship business was intensely competitive as advances were made in ship design, size, and speed. White Star Line, one of the industry leaders, focused on size and elegance rather than just speed. In 1907, White Star Line's managing director, J. Bruce Ismay, and Lord James Perry, chairman of White Star Line's shipbuilder, Harland and Wolff, conceived of 3 magnificent steamships that would set a new standard for comfort, elegance, and safety. The first 2 were to be named Olympic and Titanic, so we got those 2 bad boys right there. And then the later name chosen by Ismay to convey a sense of overwhelming size and strength would then be named the Britannic. So we got Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. They're three beauty ships.
Just name it Brittany.
Brittany. This boat's named Brittany. This one's Spears. This one's Jamie Lynn. Is that her name? Jamie Lynn Spears.
My God.
Brought to you by Zoe 101. Thank you. Titanic has inspired countless books, articles, and films, including the lovely 1997 Titanic movie starring Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. And the ship's story has entered the public consciousness as a cautionary tale about the perils of human hubris. So, let's talk about the building of Miss RMS Titanic. So, the Titanic was the product of intense competition among rival shipping lines in the first half of the 20th century. In particular, the White Star Line found itself in battle for steamship primacy with Cunard, a venerable British firm with 2 standout ships that ranked among the most sophisticated and luxurious of their time. Cunard's began service in 1907 and quickly set a speed record for the fastest average speed during a transatlantic crossing, and that title was held for 22 years. So, like, this was the fastest ship and to get across the water that was made for 22 years. Like, it held that title for 22 years.
Wow.
So, his other masterpiece, called the Lusitania, launched the same year and was lauded for spectacular interiors. Lusitania met its tragic end on May 7th, 1915, when a torpedo fired by a German U-boat sunk the ship, killing nearly 1,200 of the 1,959 people on board and precipitating the United States early into World War I.
Whoa,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was like other ships involved that were like close to it. That's crazy.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ships that were set sail at this time. So like a lot of the communication got kind of foggy between all of these ships too.
Wasn't this like the beginning of like the idea that like cruises and ships were like the way to go, like they were the places to be of luxury?
Like it was a very luxurious thing, and also people to get place to place. This was like
and
this
they were like
beautiful,
quote unquote, like a fairly new concept, right? Like a fairly new way to travel as like a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I feel like I'd be so scared to be on a boat. Like apart from the Titanic, I just don't think I'd be comfortable setting sail on some boat going somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm scared. No. I'm scared of boats. I'm scared of airplanes. Sometimes I'm scared in the car too. I'm scared of trains now too.
I'm scared of trains.
Oh my god, I just realized we're doing a boat case and we did trains last week.
That is so funny.
Trains, planes, and automobiles. And boats.
And boats. We can't forget boats. So now we just have to find a story about a plane and an automobile. Mm-hmm. It's your time. Next time for sure. It's all you.
I'll leave you to it.
I'll find a haunted plane. When I was on the plane, I was on a plane this past week, and I was terrified that I was going to get in an accident.
Bermuda Triangle your way through it? Like you're never heard of again?
I don't think I got to tell you this, but I have a screenshot on my phone of my background, right? And for some reason, it has it said January 7th, and then I had a random time.
No.
And I was like, when I was in the sky, I looked down at my phone. I took a screenshot because I was like, what?
Oh my, that's funky.
I mean, that might be a common thing. It just messes with your phone, but I was like, nope, this is the Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle's in the Midwest.
I'm like, this is the end. This is the end. So I don't trust planes, in case you're curious. And I just know that I went into a little vortex. And that's fine. Anywho, back to Miss going across the water. The same year that Cunard unveiled its two magnificent liners, J. Bruce Ismay, chief executive of White Star, discussed the construction of 3 large ships with William J. Pierre, chairman of the shipbuilding company, Harland and Wolff, part of a new Olympic class of liners. Each ship would measure 882 feet in length and 92.5 feet at their broadest point, making them the largest of their time.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I was about to say, that's big.
Yeah, they're making some big boys.
Big boy ships.
Some big boy ships. So, in March 1909, work began in the massive Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. On the second of these 3 ocean liners, Titanic, and they continued nonstop for 2 years. So, on May 31st, 1911, Titanic's immense hull, the largest movable man-made object in the world at the time, made its way down the slipways and into the river Logan in Belfast. More than 100,000 people attended the launching, which took just over a minute and went off without a hitch. So, it was doing pretty good on its, first initial little thing right there. So, the hull was immediately towed to a mammoth fitting out dock where thousands of workers would spend most of the next year building the ship's decks, constructing her lavish interiors, and installing the 29 giant boilers that would power her 2 main steam engines. So, she's huge.
She needs 2 steam engines just to function.
Yeah, she's got 2 main steam engines. She's got a bunch of different boilers to, keep her running.
Does that mean if even, one of the engines or one of the boilers went down, that ship just, wouldn't move? Because it needs all that mass?
Yeah, it needs a lot of momentum to keep going. And, I know this is, a ton of information, but, all of this leads into, different things that cause...
theories of, how everything came to be.
You gotta know kind of, this is how the ship was built because this leads to this idea, and you'll see.
Yeah,
so, this is a lot
Given
of
the evidence
info.
and the clues. Yeah.
Yes, I gotta give you
It's
all.
interesting, too, though. I didn't know that they had so many, different functions going into just to move that big of a ship.
Yes. It's all so good. I am just so excited to be doing this case because I used to be obsessed with the Titanic.
Really?
In 3rd and 4th grade, and there was this one point we had to do an entire lesson on it in school, and we all had to be different people on the Titanic, and at the end of the lesson we got to see who lived.
No, that's so messed up.
It's really sad, but I lived with my 3 kids. I don't remember their names, but I survived.
The public school system is so weird.
I know. They're they would give you an envelope and you would see your name, your family's name.
If you died or not?
Well, you wouldn't get to find out yet.
What?
You would get your name, and then we did a bunch of activities. I think she just like gave us all envelopes with names on them, and so we
would
be
that
person.
So she was like, all right.
She said, I'll let her live with her 3 kids. I think my husband died though, but
that's scary going back home like, mommy, guess what? I played Titanic today and my husband and kids perished. What the?
My husband and my best friend died.
That's so messed
Oh my gosh. We also got to make tinfoil boats and see if we could let them sink, like put pennies and see if our boat actually like stayed up.
My sister actually did that like 2 days ago. She had to like make like boats and stuff, and she was like, mine was the only one that stayed up. Everyone else is like sunk.
Maybe she should have built the Titanic. She would have had better luck, honestly.
Oh my god.
But anyway, let's get back into it. So we're just gonna talk about a little bit of the accommodations on the ship because it all leads to the goodness. So the accommodations aboard the Titanic were considered the most modern and luxurious of any ocean liner, and it included electric light and heat in every room, electric elevators, a swimming pool, a squash court, a Turkish bath, a gymnasium.
Oh.
I know a Turkish bath. A gymnasium with a mechanical horse and camel to keep riders fit, and staterooms and first-class facilities to rival the best hotels. So they, like, had the best of everything in this thing.
Oh, were they thinking, like, people would stay at, like, other, like, hotels or something, like, when they docked somewhere? Is that what they're
they just wanted to compete with best hotels because they wanted rich people to get on these boats.
And, like, not be like, oh, if we're going to this area, like, we go stay somewhere else, and just be like, why don't we just stay on the boat?
Like, it all just makes sense. Because some people obviously would travel, like, just different ways, but I feel like a lot of people would, like, go to, like, America, and, like, this was their way to get to America.
Wow.
So, like, they wanted to do it in class. Because I think there were other ships taking people, but they wanted this.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's beautiful. So, first-class passengers could glide down a 6-story glass-domed grand staircase to enjoy the finest cuisine in the first-class dining saloon that spanned the width of the ship. For those who desired a more intimate atmosphere, the Titanic would also offer the chic Palm Court and veranda restaurants and the festive Café Parisien. The liner had 2 musical ensembles rather than the standard one, and 2 libraries, first and second class. So it's got libraries!
Just like the Disney Cruise Line.
See, people who go on Disney cruises, I'm afraid for you. Also, I don't think you should be able to swim on a boat. That's just my personal and humble opinion.
Swimming?
Why would you want to swim on something that's in the water? Doesn't that seem strange to you?
That's a good point, but like I feel like once you want to be in the water, be like, oh, I'm swimming in the ocean, even though you're not in the ocean. Have you seen the ones where like they have like the tube slides on the side of the boat? Those are scary.
Are they like the ones you can go like water skiing down?
Yes.
That's so scary.
Those are terrifying.
What if like you get too much height and you just fly right off the boat?
Right into the Atlantic.
Yeah, right into the Atlantic. No thanks, sister. I'm not a fan.
A kraken just comes up and just like swipes him down.
Oh my gosh, it's like isn't the alligator from Peter Pan comes up? He goes chomp chomp, and you can hear the little ticking in him. He's like, tick, tick.
We should do a podcast on a cruise line. We should go on a cruise.
I don't know if I told you, I went on that haunted cruise for what the heck is it called? Gateway Clipper.
Oh, how was it?
There's a lot of drunk people.
Also,
some of the stories, I feel like they could have done some more paranormal stuff. Also, they didn't talk about the witch, the Monongahela, so I was really upset.
Oh.
Unless I just missed it because people were loud. But also, I don't think they did.
You should have just like been like, hey, I'm gonna like rewrite some of your stories. Here's my notes.
Like some of them, I'm just like, okay.
I would like a partial refund. Here's my notes.
Partial refund, please. I'll give you some fun little mysteries. Pittsburgh. Thank you very much. But yes, I was on a boat recently. It didn't sink. Thank God. So... even the third class or steerage cabins were more luxurious than the first class cabins on other steamships, and boasted amenities like indoor toilet facilities that some of the Titanic's emergent passengers had not enjoyed in their own homes. So, people are enjoying the bathrooms on the boats, which also is
like,
strange.
These bathrooms are insane.
Insane. Man, these bathrooms 10 out of 10.
Guys, we gotta go on the Titanic. They have the best bathroom.
I don't like the idea of like where's the bathroomness going? Where's it going? Same with planes. Where's it going? Where's it going?
It's a great point.
Like when you're on a plane and you go to the bathroom, like does it just fly out of the plane when you flush? Because
we had a rule. Did you ever be on like one of those like charter buses and stuff for long periods of time?
Maybe twice. I think twice.
When I was in band, the one rule is that you were not allowed to like poop in the charter bus. It was like you would get ostracized if you pooped on the charter
well,
bus.
I think for buses, does it work the same way like an RV does? Like you have to stop at a certain like site and like pump it out?
Yeah. Literally,
So it
like,
just sits in the bus.
like everyone in the band was like, it was just like a
Oh.
social thing that was like, if you use it to go number 2, you are cut.
Shunned.
Like,
You're shunned.
Like, I remember one person on our drum line did it, and we all were like glaring at him, and we were like, what did you do in there? Because if you're in there for more than like a couple minutes, everyone's gonna be like, what's going on?
They're judging you harshly. My gosh, poor little bus.
My God.
Planes could never. Just saying. Titanic could never. She may have sunk, but did she really sink? That low? Don't think so. So, speaking of sinkable, unsinkable Titanic's fatal flaws. Here we go. According to some hypotheses, hypotheses? We're going to say it like that. Judge us. Do it. I dare ya. Titanic was doomed from the start by design that many lauded as state-of-the-art. The Olympic-class ships featured a double bottom and 15 watertight bulkhead compartments equipped with electric watertight doors that could be operated individually or simultaneously by a switch of the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, so they got all this stuff. It was these watertight bulkheads that inspired Shipbuilder magazine in a special issue devoted to the Olympic liners to deem them practically unsinkable. So, like, the fact that they had all of these made it so they were,
that's
quote,
why
unsinkable.
They, like, quote, that's why, like, the marketing for it was the unsinkable ship.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, like, was it? But the other the watertight...
Was it? Like, you're questioning it.
Was it? I think we know what happened. But the watertight compartment design contained a flaw that was a critical factor in Titanic's sinking. While the individual bulkheads were indeed watertight, the walls separating the bulkheads extended only a few feet above the waterline, so water could pour from one compartment into another, especially if the ship began to list or pitch forward. The second critical safety lapse that contributed to the loss of so many lives was the inadequate number of lifeboats carried on the Titanic. A mere 16 boats plus 4 Engelhart collapsibles could accommodate just 1,178 people. Titanic could carry up to 2,435 passengers, and a crew of approximately 900 brought her capacity to more than 3,300 people. So they literally only had enough lifeboats for 1,178 people and had 3,300 people on there.
So not like half.
Not even.
Like, just under half.
They went, yeah, we're just going to put this. Everyone else can just die, I guess. Like,
oh my God. Well, they
even
like,
if
probably...
you thought.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Like, why would you not think to have double of that or like something?
Yeah.
Or just like not have that many people on the ship to begin with? Like,
yeah, like
maximize just to the safety precaution.
That's such a liability. Like, why would you even want to chance that?
Yeah, like, why would you want to? Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think
that's
of that.
like putting only like on planes how they have like the air masks, like only putting on one side of the plane.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the rest of you can just die.
Imagine like the things come flying down, it's just like on the right side of the plane, the left side is just like, oh,
okay, guess I'm dying now. Like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
So obviously that's a huge issue, and then as a result, even if the lifeboats were loaded to full capacity during emergency evacuation, there were available seats for only 1/3 of those on board. It's not even a half, a third of those on board.
So it's a third. Oh my goodness.
So while unthinkably inadequate to today's standards, Titanic's supply of lifeboats actually exceeded the British Board of Trade's requirements.
Really?
So it exceeded.
They were like doing well. Like, they were like, gold star.
They said, you guys are doing so great. Good job on safety precautions. My gosh.
I like wonder if like this case also like this tragedy ended up like making the new safety precautions of like, yeah, maybe you should have enough like emergency lifeboats for everyone on your ship.
Well, also, they very clearly at the time probably weren't focused on safety. Like, they weren't even thinking, oh yeah, this could sink, because they took, quote, extra precautions to make like the underneath a safer, unsinkable type of ship. But I'm like, why would you even chance it, though?
Well, like, even then, though, like, things can still go wrong. Like, that has nothing to do with it sinking. Like, it could catch on fire. There could be an emergency with someone on there. Like, what if it was gonna get, like, I don't know, jacked up by pirates, you know?
What if pirates came?
What if pirates came? I just, Of course.
I don't trust nobody. So let's get to Titanic and her sailing. Let's get to when she set sail because then the mysteries come, right?
Ooh, okay.
So let's tell our little story. Titanic's departure from Southampton on April 10th was not without some oddities. A small coal fire, you got fire, you said fire. So a small coal fire was discovered in one of her bunkers, an alarming but not uncommon occurrence of steamships of the day. Stokers hosed down the smoldering coal and shoveled it aside to reach the base of the blaze. After assessing the situation, the captain-in-chief engineer concluded that it was unlikely it had caused any damage that could affect the whole structure, and the stokers were ordered to continue controlling the fire at sea. So, it was still just on fire.
It was still,
they were
on fire
just,
while they were sailing?
Yeah, they were just, controlling it. They're like, we can take care of it.
Oh, my goodness.
And, obviously, it's just burning the whole structure. It's fine.
Wow.
So, it's already, on its main voyage, it's already going through some stuff.
And this was, this is in the same timeline of when it sank.
Yeah, well, it took 10 days. Maybe it was out for 10 days. This is, the day it set sail, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so she starts going up in a blaze. According to a theory put forth by a small number of Titanic experts, the fire became uncontrollable after the ship left Southampton. So, right after it left, it became uncontrollable, forcing the crew to attempt a full-speed crossing. Moving at such a fast pace, they were unable to avoid the fatal collision with an iceberg. So, that's probably why they couldn't stop.
Wow.
For the iceberg.
I didn't know that, actually. But I also just, had this thought, why did you not think a fire would happen moving a ship that heavy? With that many people, that many tons, and that much mass, how did you not think it was going to cause a rupture to cause a fire?
Yeah, well, also we talked about it, how they had so many different areas that they were lighting all these, fires, all the coal
why did
burner
they not
places.
think that
could
happen on sailing and still be this is fine, and just keep going?
And I'm sure a lot of people might have died in that, died down there, just in general, because there were people working down there just for that, who worked in that heat all day, just trying to make sure the boat was running.
Yeah, that would make you feel sick.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's just crazy to me. They should have stopped just then and cut their losses.
Yeah.
That's wow.
The amount of lives you would save.
But that's also that's also chilling in a way too, that this giant fire is going on and all these passengers on the top have no idea.
Yeah. Well, even the people
that's scary.
All the different decks, no one knew except for the people obviously below, and I think
oblivious
it said the chief, not the chief, whatever the heck he's called.
That is terrifying.
That's horrifying. And the fact he was yeah, they'll get it under control. Let's keep going. Let's go all the way across the water with our boat on fire. That's safe. So another unsettling event took place when Titanic left Southampton dock. As she got underway, she narrowly escaped a collision with the America Line SS New York. So she almost hit another boat.
So they're 2 for 2 right now in mistakes.
Yeah, she's going through it all. So superstitious Titanic buffs sometimes point to this as the worst kind of omen for a ship departing on her maiden voyage. So that was a bad omen. You almost hit the America Line SS New York.
That's a thing known amongst ships. If you hit another ship, it's a bad omen.
Yeah, or almost. That's a bad omen, and obviously
that's
on her
crazy.
maiden voyage, it was not good.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm happy to know boat lore and culture.
Boat lore. So Lore. Taylor Swift's new album, Boat Lore. Streaming on all platforms. So on April 14th, after 4 days of uneventful sailing, Titanic received sporadic reports of ice from other ships, but she was sailing on calm seas under a moonless, clear sky. So they were getting all these reports hey, it's icy, be careful, don't do anything stupid. So at about 11:30 p.m., a lookout saw an iceberg coming out of a slight haze dead ahead, then rang the warning bell and telephoned the bridge. The engines were quickly reversed and the ship was turned sharply instead of making direct impact. So she turned, but obviously she didn't end up hitting it.
Didn't turn as far as it could not to hit it.
Yeah, also it's probably a very big chunk of ice too. So.
Yeah, so it's it was almost too late then. It was at that point.
It says Titanic seemed to graze along the side of that berg. So instead of it could have just done damage in the front, she could have hit it straight on, but since they turned so abruptly and so quick, it literally just slit the whole side basically.
Really?
I
didn't know that.
Grazed along the side of the iceberg, sprinkling ice fragments on the forward deck. So there was ice on the deck.
Whoa,
because they hit it so hard. So and then it says, sensing no collision, the lookouts were relieved. They're we didn't hit it. We're fine. There's just ice on the deck. There's ice on the deck. They're ah.
Wouldn't you hear the screeching too? That
you'd think. I can't believe it said sensing no collision. The lookouts were relieved. They had no idea that the iceberg had a jagged underwater spur. So also part of the issue was it wasn't necessarily a lot of the ice above. It was how like wide the iceberg was underneath that did all the damage. So like they didn't see it hit. But I'm like you said, you would have felt.
You would have felt it.
You would have felt it.
A passenger had to like hear it or saw it or did something.
Yeah,
and be like,
or saw the ice.
I would tell a crew member. I'd be like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but this giant thing of freaking ice just got on our shuffleboard deck.
All over the deck. Don't you see it? Oh, like people are so dumb. So it actually slashed a 300-foot gash in the hull below the ship's waterline.
How would you not know?
How would you not know? Literally. Well, because I think how it worked was they put like quote lower class people on the lower like deck, like the lower deck, so they probably didn't care as much because
they're like, oh, whatever.
They're like lower class, so people aren't like all the big people of the boat aren't really down there except Absolutely like not. Way below where they had the people like firing up the ship.
God, I didn't know they had like a class like level for the decks too. Like on top of that, everyone should just be allowed to enjoy it the same way.
Like it's also different like prices people paid.
Yeah,
and everything,
still,
but
though,
still you don't.
You paid a certain amount to do it. You should like be respectful and like, take care of your passengers.
But it was very clearly like a classist thing, very clearly. But
I mean, it was 1912.
1915.
1915. Yeah.
I think I'm telling the whole story. I'm like, it's one of those years. We'll see. So
I feel like all our listeners are like, wow, they suck at history.
Guys,
for a mystery podcast.
Look like I majored in history. I'm an art major. Movies, Betty.
Our kids take on history podcasts.
Here it is. It's all you ever expected it to be. So by the time the captain toured the damaged areas with Harlan and Wolf, Thomas Andrews, 5 compartments were already filling with seawater. So 5 of the compartments below the water line were already filling with water when they finally went to go check it. So the bow of the doomed ship was alarmingly pitched downward, allowing seawater to pour from one bulkhead into the neighboring compartment. So, like, she was starting to tip.
So it was, like, filling up, so it, like, made the boat heavier on one side.
Yeah, she started going down. So Andrews did a quick calculation, estimated the Titanic might remain afloat for an hour and a half, perhaps slightly more, and at that point the captain, who had already instructed the wireless operator to call for help, ordered the lifeboats to be loaded. So that's when, obviously, the whole situation where all the lifeboats, they don't have enough. That whole situation. Yeah. And then after all that...
That's why they called for help, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they called for help. No one answered.
Yeah, I mean, they're, like, far out into the water, aren't they? Like, also near, like, the hazard zone that, like, other ships had warned them about.
Yeah.
So it already would be hard enough to, like, try to get in there without putting more people in harm's way.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, it was just a really sad situation, and I think like a lot of people already know the story that like a lot of it was women and children got to go on the lifeboats and men obviously didn't.
Last
until like I think sometimes they made exceptions, but mostly it was just men, women, not men, women, children, family type thing. So all of that happened, and obviously the Titanic sinks. So the ship's most illustrious passengers each responded to the circumstances with conduct that may become an integral part of the Titanic legend. Ismay, the White Star managing director, helped load some of the boats and later stepped onto a collapsible as it was being lowered. Although no women or children were in the vicinity when he abandoned ship, he would never live down the ignominy of surviving the disaster while so many others perished. So he
thought about his own life, and now he has regret that he's selfish.
Yeah, like he was a jerk for not getting all of the boats that needed to be on there, and he just like escaped like a coward.
Yeah,
he let everyone else sink.
I mean, I'd feel regret for that too. Even if like I did make it out of there alive, like I'd feel regret still.
Yeah,
like, that's a tragedy. Like, oh my
that's
God.
so sad. And also the fact that he had the luxury of being able to just get on one of these boats to live.
And not bring anyone else with him too.
It's not fair.
Absolutely not.
So Thomas Andrews, Titanic chief designer, was last seen in the first-class smoking room, staring blankly at a painting of a ship on a wall, and Astor deposited his wife Madeline into a lifeboat and, remarking that she was pregnant, asked if he could accompany her. Refused entry, he managed to kiss her goodbye just before the boat was lowered away. So even like crew members had to like say goodbye to their families, and like like it's just sad. Like they were all separated through all of this.
Wow.
So
I guess you would bring your family onto a cruise, because if you're going to be gone for like a long period of time, you want your family with you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I think he was the designer, and then like he had brought his family on here, so like he had to say goodbye to his pregnant wife and just let her.
Wow.
And like that's her kid.
Wow, I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah, But there's like a ton of different stories like that, and then eventually Titanic, nearly perpendicular with many of her lights still aglow, finally dove beneath the ocean's surface at about 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912. So it was 1912.
That's
So
right.
throughout the morning, Cunard Carpathia, after receiving Titanic's distress call at midnight. So Titanic did put out some distress calls, and finally there was an answer. So Titanic's distress call at midnight and steaming at full speed while dodging ice floes all night, rounded up all of the lifeboats and contained only 705 survivors. So like
705. So that's still like, that's crazy because I think that still adds, no wait, that's not even 1/3. That's like, there's like 3,000 people.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's like maybe like 1/6. Possibly. Wow.
Like they got literally 705 survivors of that.
Wow.
So
yeah, I like how you mentioned that they were like dodging all the icebergs, because of course someone's gonna like come for help, but it's gonna be like harder because they're in like such a high danger zone. Wow.
Like it's all just rough. So like all of that happened, but then I just wanted to lead all of that up to all of the different mysteries. So I'm going to now present all the different mysteries.
Okay, yeah.
But you needed all of that to truly understand the depth behind these.
I understand. You needed like get the background,
get the gist of her story. So this first little mystery is, was it even the Titanic? Was it the Titanic?
I've heard of this one. I've heard of this one.
People seem to love a good insurance fraud story, so maybe it's unsurprising that this conspiracy theory is one of the Titanic's most popular. So as you've heard it. So this one posits that someone switched the Titanic and another White Star Line ship, so it would have been the RMS Olympic instead. But as Paul Burns, vice president and curator of the Titanic Museum attractions in Missouri and Tennessee, points out, he says, it just doesn't make any sense. The theory starts with the fact that the Olympic was damaged while sailing from Southampton, England to New York in September 1911 and had to return to Harland and Wolff's shipping yard in Belfast for repairs. The company repaired the Olympic and it sailed to New York and back. It returned to Belfast for more repairs in March 1912 and a few weeks before the Titanic set sail. So it could have potentially been there at the time that Titanic was supposed to set sail. So the conspiracy theory claims that some person or people found the Olympic too severely damaged to be profitable, and so at some point they'd switched it with the Titanic to purposefully ditch the damaged ship, reap the insurance money, and it seems kill a bunch of people in the process. There are a lot of holes in this theory, but one of the biggest is that the Titanic's insurance wasn't enough to cover the Olympic's loss. As J. Kent Layton writes in Conspiracies at Seas, quote, the switch conspiracy founders quite literally on its financial merit alone. So that's like one of the biggest like conspiracy theories about it.
I understand like all the holes like in the story, because I do like feel as though if it was supposed to be an insurance fraud thing, why would they put such a big amount of people on the ship just to like hurt them and like cause such tragedy? Like why wouldn't they have insured that everyone could have gotten out of it safely? Like being like, oh, for our first run we're only going to be doing this many people. I have seen like that one, I don't know if it's edited or not, but I know it's been around on the internet. I know people have taken pictures of like the Titanic and the Olympic and they look oddly similar. But I also could see how like if it's the same designer, he would have very similar
like
styles
they all would
of
be
ship.
Very similar. But I also want to know, did the people who went on the Titanic or the Olympic, did they have to sign waivers? And like, wouldn't there be some sort of liability if all these people were to die?
Yeah, like they're like I'm pretty sure like there was a lot of liability that came up with something like this.
Yeah,
'cause it was like
wouldn't these families get money?
Yeah, like
from this.
I think you're right in saying that, because it's like more of a, why would they want that to happen?
Yeah,
because they would just be sued for more money than they'd be making off the insurance.
Like they wouldn't make it. Like it's exactly that. So I don't necessarily believe this. Like even if it could have been this, and they didn't necessarily think it.
Even if they would have done like a trial run with 100 people or something, and then like tanked it, and it's like everyone got out safely. We were doing a trial run, get the insurance money. It just, there's a lot of holes in this one.
And also the idea that they'd let so many people, like not so many people, but let people actually out of the ship, like have lifeboats to get people off.
Yeah.
Like the people who lived are going to be suing big time.
I just have a hard time believing that they would want to make that much of a tragedy where only 705 people survived. Like that's just like hard for me to like swallow.
Yeah,
with that.
Don't believe it, but that's one of the biggest theories.
Yeah, I've heard of that one before.
Yes. And then the next one. This one is very fun, actually. This one
A little fun one.
This one's fun. It says a mummy's curse doomed the Titanic.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's so cool.
I might have heard of this one too. I don't know about it, but I feel like I've heard this.
I've never heard of this one, so I was excited.
Go for it.
One of the passengers who went down with the Titanic was named William Stead. He was a British editor who subscribed to the early 20th century spiritualism and had spent the past several years claiming a cursed mummy was causing mysterious destruction and disaster in London. As with many other myths about Egyptian curses and, quote, Native American burial grounds, this myth played off of colonists' anxiety about the people whose lands had been plundered. So on board the Titanic, Stead happily repeated his tale of the mummy's curse to other passengers.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he's...
Which angered
some spirits out there. So after the ship sank, a survivor recounted Stead's story to the New York World, and the media picked it up. The next month, the Washington Post ran this headline: Ghost of the Titanic, Vengeance of Hoodoo Mummy Followed Man Who Wrote Its Story. So Burns says some people link the mummy's curse to Egyptian artifacts that survivor and hero Margaret Brown really did take with her on the Titanic to deliver to a museum in Denver. In other versions of the story, the mummy was actually aboard the Titanic because the British Museum had sold it to an American who was shipping it home. So, but the truth is the so-called, quote, unlucky mummy is still at the British Museum, and no mummy was ever loaded onto the ship.
Like, it never left. Like, there's no record of it disappearing. Can you imagine you're going to the museum to see it? Like, hey, where is it? Where'd it go?
Where'd it go? Oh, yeah, they put it on the Titanic.
I could see the idea, though, that, like, the spirits were, like, angry by that, because I did a whole episode based on curses of Pharaoh. So, like, it's, like, not even, like, if you just, like, abrupt or disrespect, like, that culture, or like disrespect those types of artifacts of history, like bad things do happen. So like, I could in the sense of paranormal, I could definitely see that being a part of it.
You're disturbing some spirits, kind of making fun of them, so they're obviously going to do something to mess with the boat.
And London would play like the United Kingdom played like a big part in like a lot of the Curse of the Pharaoh stuff. Like, like a lot of the big archaeologists came from the UK. So I could see it.
So it just makes sense. So it was not an iceberg, not a curse, but the iceberg did sink the Titanic. So, but people do believe it was the curse. Some people do. I think I want to believe it's the curse.
I can see it playing a part in it.
Yeah.
Like natural causes.
Yeah, natural causes, but the curse. So this next one is interesting. So it said, I wish it was. Why is there no alien one? You're onto something there. I think that's the next one.
We can make one.
Let's make one. Aliens did it, guys. Anyway, so this one is the ship's number read no Pope backwards. So we'll get into what that means. So I know that's like a crazy one to throw out, but you'll understand soon.
I feel like I had a stroke.
You're like, what does that mean? So here it is. One myth posits that Catholic employees of Harland and Wolff, the Belfast company that built the Titanic, were distressed that the ship's number, which was 390904, seemed to say no Pope when viewed in a mirror. So like if it was reflected in a mirror, it would say no Pope. Those numbers would look like no Pope. So they were wondering, was this a sign of bad luck that foretold the ship's doom? So obviously nope. This is what the person's saying. No. But the late Titanic historian Walter Lord wrote that he received letters from people in Ireland replaying the no Pope story beginning in the mid-1950s. Yet, as Burns pointed out in his 1986 book, The Night Lives On, there was no such number attached to the Titanic. So, but it's just strange because people had this idea of no Pope.
Do you think happening. Like it could be like Mandela effect kind of thing?
It very well could be.
Like I remember the Titanic having numbers on the side and
that
it
said
like
no
said
Pope.
It. Yeah, and it's like no, it was never there.
Or it could even be like something spiritual messing with them too. Like they saw like no Pope, which was kind of like
the idea of
against
like,
religion, against like the Catholic Church, like just very evil type things coming into play.
It could also very much be like people trying to like cope with the situation and like kind of making their own narrative of it to try to like understand such a tragedy. I could see that being an option too.
Yeah.
I could see all three being possible.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, And then this next one is asking, did a fire actually steal the ship's fate? So a recent documentary offers credible evidence that the Titanic, so let's just call it that for argument's sake, because some people think it's the Olympic, had been damaged by a coal fire, which had been raging for 3 weeks before the ship even set sail. So the damage would have weakened the hull of the ship, thus hastening the ship sinking when it collided to the iceberg.
Yeah.
So a lot of people just say, like, mostly it was the fire.
I mean, like, I can get into that because if it's unsinkable and, like, that iceberg screwed it up so bad, like, when you heat up metal,
like, it's going to be messed up.
It's going to, like, be, like, if you get metal so hot and then it gets impacted, it's going to create a hole, which water will fall through. And then, I think you said earlier, like, it was lopsided or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was heavier on one side because of the water coming through.
Because the water was weighing down one side. But also, like, it comes into play, the idea that they said it was unsinkable was because if they were to have hit an iceberg, like back when the ship was like fine and dandy, like it would have been, quote, unsinkable. But the fact that the boat was heated up is what messed it up in the inside. So the fire probably was the main reason.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see it playing a part of it. Like, the fire did not help at all when it hit the iceberg. Like, they added to it. Yeah.
Like, all of it was weakened. So that's a big theory. And then this next one is, why was the captain speeding in the first place? So, for decades, people believed that Captain Smith was speeding through the iceberg-heavy waters of the North Atlantic because he wanted the Titanic to cross the Atlantic faster than her sister ship, the Olympic. But in 2004, the Geological Society of America published an academic paper by engineer Robert H. Essenhigh with a different theory. It claimed the real reason the Titanic's captain was speeding was because the coal fire was uncontrollable, like completely uncontrollable, that he had to like book it or else the whole entire ship was going to burst into flames.
Oh, wow.
So did a full moon also have something to do with the Titanic's like crash?
What moon?
A full moon. They just kind of threw out an extra theory in there. They have no explanation, but like, did a full moon also have some sort of idea with the reason he was going so fast?
Like cosmic, like,
yeah, something with like the water and the moon
I forget the moon controls water.
Tides. They were just including that in the idea, but I think it's a reasonable reason if he thinks the ship's going to literally burst into flames for him to be going so fast in icy waters.
But it just it frustrates me because it's like, if you know the ship's going down, like, why don't you try to get to like a stop where you can get everyone off safely, like, somehow, like, why just be like, oh, just rush the cruise, like,
it's like, your first issue, sir, is if you should have not went on to sail if you literally
if it was on fire for 3 weeks.
It was on fire in the first place, sir.
Oh my
So why did you leave? Second off, there was no way he could have stopped anyway in the middle of the ocean because obviously they didn't have enough lifeboats in the first place. But it didn't help that they were literally sinking. They could have survived longer if the boat wasn't literally sinking.
Yeah, exactly. But they said, "Oh, it's fine. We'll still go."
They said, we'll speed in the icy waters with
a
fire."
Like 5 minutes after he gets out there, he's like, "You know what? Never mind." And then they back the engine back up to the dock.
They go, "What? Why?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, you're gonna burn in a fire."
The story would have ended very differently if they would have just taken that extra precaution.
You know, if he cared, if he actually cared. So the next question here is, what caused the ship to break into two pieces? So if you're familiar with like how the Titanic like sunk, half of it sunk and then the weight kind of broke it in half essentially.
Crazy.
So what caused this? On September 1985, oceanographer Robert Ballard discovered the wreckage 2.5 miles below the ocean's surface, along with surprising news that the ship had broken in two before sinking. So even before it sank, it was broken into two pieces, which is strange because you would assume
it would fall immediately. Yeah,
or like as soon as it started to sink, like one side would get heavier and it'd sink that way. But before it sank, it broke into two pieces, I guess.
I can't imagine being a passenger and seeing something like split down the...
Like how does that happen?
Wow.
So obviously previously, everyone had thought that the ship sank intact after colliding with an iceberg while speeding recklessly through icy waters. And Ballard's discovery led to a new theory that the ship splitting into two pieces, which may have been the difference between life and death, was the result of design flaws and the skimping on quality materials by the owners and or builders. So not only was it the fault of like a fire or hitting...
They didn't make it stable enough in the middle.
It wasn't stable enough in the first place.
Unsinkable.
Unsinkable. It just wasn't made from stable materials. So like...
Oh my god. But it's like so many tons. Why didn't you think to make it stable enough?
So literally anything could have happened. It was just that unstable.
No
And
way.
then another theory is, did a torpedo sink the Titanic? Which this is kind of interesting.
Oh.
So most believe the Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg on April 14th, and regardless of other contributing factors. But not everyone. Some think the Titanic was torpedoed by a German U-boat. This theory doesn't seem at all far-fetched, considering that 3 years later, in 1915, a German U-boat did sink a passenger ship, the Lusitania.
Oh.
However, it's possible that torpedo theorists are confusing the Titanic with the Lusitania. It's also
Mm-hmm.
possible that they're confusing the Titanic with the Olympic, which had sustained damage after colliding with the military vessel in 1911.
Oh, so it's like these other boats could have like made people's consensus think, yeah, didn't I hear like this happened with the
Yeah,
Titanic
like
and
it
they'd Oh,
very
I could see people
likely.
believing that, like especially like in like the 1920s probably. I could see someone being like,
Yeah,
yeah, a torpedo sunk the Titanic. You guys
especially
didn't
with
know
like
about that?
German U-boats and stuff, but still the presence of
Wow.
several other ships in the vicinity of the Titanic sinking leaves the question open.
Mm-hmm.
So like because there were so many other ships setting sail around where the Titanic was, it's
Mm-hmm.
likely that they could have been torpedoed by a different
Oh.
ship,
Mm-hmm.
which is concerning, but
Oh
that's
my
a big one.
goodness.
And then this next little conspiracy was there even an iceberg in the first place? So,
Oh.
assuming the Titanic didn't collide with and wasn't torpedoed by another ship, it's safe to believe that it hit an iceberg, right?
Mm.
Not necessarily.
Oh.
Professional mariner Captain L.M. Collins maintained that if the Titanic had hit an iceberg, it would have gone down in mere minutes. Instead, Collins and his followers believed Titanic must have hit a hidden floe of pack ice, which is multi-year-old sheets of ice floating near the ocean surface, and that had made its way onto the
Oh.
Atlantic from the Arctic Ocean. Collins points out discrepancies in eyewitness accounts, which may have been due to various natural optical illusions, and if only the crew had binoculars, they could have seen this coming, right? So,
Oh. So they think like it wasn't an iceberg, but people misinterpret it as an iceberg.
yeah, like it could have been like
Oh.
different optical illusions. They said it
Cause,
might have
cause
been
it
like
was up
different
for an hour and a
ice.
half after it hit it,
Yeah,
before it completely sank.
like it could have just hit like packed up ice that was on top, I guess,
Oh,
on the
but it wasn't
water,
an iceberg.
not necessarily an iceberg. Because it would
Oh,
make sense, why did it take so long to sink?
yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
So they're saying if it actually hit an iceberg, like down for the count, right then and there.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming what they're saying because they said
Wow.
it would have taken mere minutes for it to sink,
Wow.
which is an interesting idea. And then it leads to the question like why didn't the crew have binoculars?
Well,
Why didn't
yeah.
the why didn't they
Any
have
on the
it?
ship?
So surely if the crew did have binoculars, they would have seen the danger in time to change course. But the
Mm-hmm.
Titanic's entire supply of binoculars was locked away in a storage compartment. So it wasn't up where they could actually use it. They had it locked away. And crew members
Every
who
time we do a case, it's
I'm just
like
like people are such
stupid thing after
idiots.
stupid thing.
I'm like they did everything to not make this a safe boat.
They're like, "Duh, but it'll be fine, right? It won't happen to us."
Oh, we don't need lifeboats. We don't need to stop a fire. We don't need
No
binoculars to keep us
way.
safe. So, a crew member who had been transferred off the ship just before it set sail had the key. The crew member later claimed he, quote, forgot to hand over the key. But did he forget?
Forget?
Did he deliberately hold on to it? And if so,
Oh.
would it further the idea of like an insurance fraud? Or was it something else entirely? Like, there's just different questions that come into play. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't
I
he
could
give
see you
these
wanting to like
over?
grill someone about like that. Like
Yeah.
how could you forget when there's like 3,000 people's lives at stake?
Yeah, like
Like
how do
and
you
you
just
just
forget?
forgot.
And like
Yeah.
that's your whole your whole thing is to have this key to these things
Yeah.
to keep you safe. But
Wow.
and then this next idea was if there was a warning, why didn't anyone take it seriously?
Why didn't anyone take it seriously?
So,
Yeah.
even without binoculars, the Titanic might have had time to change course before its collision if someone had warned the crew. But here's the thing someone did warn the crew. An hour before the collision, a nearby ship, the SS Californian, had radioed to say that it had been stopped by, quote, dense field ice. However, the Titanic's radio operator, Jack Phillips, never conveyed the warning to Captain Smith, and some say the message was
Why?
deliberately conveyed as non urgent. But we'll never know for sure since Phillips went down with the ship. So,
We'll never know like what his reason for it
why
was.
didn't he tell
Oh
anyone
my
about it?
gosh.
He was just like, we
I
don't
could
need it.
see I could see like why like just like human stupidity of why all these people have brushed off like oh like it'll be fine like my mistake or like me doing this won't cause any harm.
Yeah.
But I understand why people think it is the insurance thing, because there's just so many warnings and signs and things that they tried to do.
Yeah.
And then no one said anything.
I'm just like...
Also, you said that ship mentioned, like, kind of like sheets of ice and stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of adds to the idea that it wasn't an iceberg to begin with.
Like, there were all these different sheets of ice. Like, so many people had warned, like, hey, like, it's very icy out there. Be careful. You're heading towards the ice.
Yeah.
And the fact that they still kept going as quick as they were.
Yeah.
Like, no one decided to tell anyone about this.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, they're so dumb. They're so dumb. It's always these people are the reason things get so messy in the first place. Mm-hmm. So our next idea is, did the Californian have something to do with it? So the other boat, they had radioed them.
The one that signaled them in, like, saying that something was awry.
Yeah, so this cruise liner was less than 20 kilometers away from where the Titanic sank. It sent a warning to the Titanic about the dangerously icy conditions, which may have been relayed as a non-urgent manner. Later, the Californian crew reportedly ignored the Titanic's distress signals, although they claimed they were not aware of these signals because their radio operator had, quote, gone off duty. So,
oh my gosh.
Did the Californian really not notice what was happening within plain view, or did they just, like, choose to ignore it?
Did they? Yeah.
Like, they could have been part of the problem. Like, not saying they're part of the problem, but also they could have easily helped.
Yeah,
but they
exactly.
Just completely ignored.
But they ignored this other boat completely. Yeah, they could have helped. They could have even probably taken more passengers too or something if they were making it away safely. Like, I don't know.
They could have saved so many people so much quicker.
Oh my gosh. But, like, honestly, like, not to be like, oh, I understand or something, but, like, if the person on the other ship didn't even say, like, oh, it's nothing to worry about, it's kind of like, if you're not asking for help, why didn't you? Like, like, so they had, like, so many opportunities to aid and, like, help, and they didn't.
And they just didn't.
Oh my goodness.
They just did it. So, now we're going to talk about the third ship, whatever this third ship is. Okay. So the Californian may not have been the only ship that ignored the Titanic's distress signals. A Norwegian ship called the Samson may have been nearby as well. In fact, some believe the Samson was closer to the Titanic than the Californian, but also ignored her distress signals in order to avoid prosecution for illegal seal hunting. So these people were, like, illegally hunting seals on their boat.
So they didn't want to get caught.
Yeah, they were like, well, if we help them, we might get caught. And I'm like, that's so messed up. You're literally letting people die because you don't want to get caught for hunting.
That's crazy.
Like, that's disgusting.
That's such, like, a conspiracy, though. Yeah. Like, just the idea of, like, we can't help because we'll all go down it.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And, like, it is a popular theory among defenders of the Californian's captain, but whether it actually remains true is a mystery. Mm-hmm. But people do believe this. It's a big theory. And then we have one big idea here. Okay. So, did J.P. Morgan plan the whole thing? So, some who believe the Titanic took the place of the damaged Olympic blame financier J.P. Morgan, who was one of the owners of the company that owned both ships. Morgan was one of the wealthiest people on the planet at the time. And he wielded considerable power. In addition, he was a last-minute no-show on the Titanic's sole voyage. So, like, he was like, never mind, I'm not going to go. I don't know where. So, why did Morgan and his entire family, did not end up on the ship? Did he know what was going to happen? Did he plan it? And so, then it comes to the idea of, like, was this a murder plot that he had planned? So, some believe that the sinking had nothing to do with the insurance money, but rather that J.P. Morgan engineered the sinking to kill off his rivals, Jacob Astor, Isidor Strauss, and Benjamin Guggenheim, all of whom perished aboard the ship. So the theory hinges on the fact that Morgan had originally planned to sail on Titanic, but changed his mind shortly before it took off. Yet it doesn't offer any explanation for how he caused the ship to hit an iceberg and kill over 1,500 people, let alone the 3 men he supposedly intended to die.
So do you think, I could see someone being that corrupt. I think this is one of the only theories I'm like, yeah, I could see someone, like, being that evil.
Yeah.
Like, so do you think, like, it's possible he had no idea about the icebergs and stuff, but did know that, like, he was planning on, like, blowing up those, like, boilers and causing those fires?
Like, there could have been something along with that. Like, maybe he knew it was already on fire, and he was like, I'm out. I'll see ya.
Yeah, like knowing the fate, but just didn't warn them, or, like, Wow.
And wow, and now I have another idea. It could have even been something like combining the idea with the torpedo stuff. Like
Yeah.
he could have had
Oh, like
connection with
he had
someone
a
else with the
hand
torpedo.
with the.
You never
Whoa.
know. Like I don't know his connections or anything, but you never know. It could have had
So
some sort
the
of thing.
iceberg is just a crazy coincidence because I don't see how a person could
Yeah.
make an iceberg
Yeah, that doesn't seem
happen. Like
likely.
I don't think you can make a natural cause happen. But I could see the
Yeah.
torpedo and then also like that on top. I could even see like him helping with the cruise, how the route they were gonna
Yeah, the
take,
route.
and knowing that it's a high volume of ice area. That is
I mean, it could
wow.
also go into play, like maybe that guy that forgot the binocular, like
Mm-hmm.
place key, the
I
storage
feel like
key.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Like oh
It
yeah,
could have
the
all been a
key
very
too.
elaborate setup that he was like,
Wow.
okay, I'm taking this key, or like
Yeah.
just something specific with all of that, so they can't have a clear,
I
like,
feel like
eye line of what's happening.
I feel like I've heard of this guy before too. Like I think I've heard this story about like how like last minute he was like, "Never mind, me and my family aren't gonna go." Like
Yeah.
I've heard so many stories of people who like were about to board and they were like, "I can't. I don't
Yeah.
feel right."
And I'm like, trust your gut. Trust
Wow.
it, because it's obviously telling you something
Mm-hmm.
further than what you understand. But
Wow.
to top it off, the theory claims Morgan wanted to kill them because they opposed the creation of the idea of Federal Reserve, even though
Mm.
Astor and Gunningham didn't appear to have taken a position on it and Strauss actually supported it. Alternative versions of this theory claim that Rothschild banking family, or the just Sweets, were the ones who arranged Astor, Strauss, and Gunningham's death on the Titanic. So they talked about how they were arranging this all. So, as the Washington Post notes, invoking the Rothschilds as international conspirators as a centuries old anti Semitic trope. So, the Rothschild family founded banking houses across Europe in the early 1800s, and they have been a favorite target of conspiracy theorists ever since. So, like, this
Mm.
entire group of people has so many different conspiracies surrounding them. And then, how did Morgan plan to pull off this plot? Neither the insurance theory nor the murder theory takes into account. What else would Morgan have needed to do in order to ensure his plan's success? So,
I could see how they would feel like it could be like a lot of sloppy work. Like it'd be need to be very detailed and like almost kind of like how like the train robbery from last week. It would
mm-hmm.
have to be a very extremely detailed plan with an outline and an idea. And even then, their plan didn't go exactly as planned.
Yeah. It's just
Wow.
like there's a lot of different elaborate things. But also, like, going back to the idea I talked about, like the key, I'm wondering if that guy just, like, the guy who had the key, I feel like he couldn't have conspired with him
I
because he would
feel
have
like
known
it.
he was going to die.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be good to know like who survived this. Like, did he end up?
Yeah.
Did the guy with the key end up surviving? And did that add to like the thickened plot of like, did the co-conspirators get out
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, I want to know more about what actually happened here. So, we
Yeah.
have one more theory here, just talking about the idea of why there weren't enough lifeboats to begin with.
Okay.
So, no matter what caused the Titanic to sink, such a massive loss of life could probably have been avoided if the ship had carried sufficient lifeboats for its passengers and crew, notes History.com. So then, why did the uber luxury liner have only 20 lifeboats, which was the legal minimum? So they were literally carrying the legal minimum of lifeboats. So why did the ship's owner decide to ignore the recommendations to carry 50% more lifeboats? If the sinking were merely an insurance scam, how can the devastating lack of lifeboats be explained?
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mentioned that earlier.
like it just
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
does
So,
completely does not make
yeah,
sense.
this seems to dovetail more than a murder plot, but it also could be nothing more than cost cutting on the part of the ship's owners. So it could literally be them
Cost
trying to
efficiency.
save a quick buck in the end of the day.
Mm.
But I'm like,
But it ends up causing like such terrible things.
yeah,
That's
like
yeah,
they could have saved a lot of lives if they weren't cutting corners in every single way. I'm like, it's
100%.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different conspiracies here, but
Wow.
while it has always been assumed that the ship sank as a result of the gas that caused the bulkhead compartments to flood, these various other theories have emerged over the decades to try to fill the answers in the unknown. So, no matter what the truth is as to what really went down on the night of April 14th, 1912, one thing is undeniable, and that is what happened in the North Atlantic waters to all of those who were aboard the RMS Titanic was an absolute tragedy that'll never be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this entire situation? Like, do you think it was there's all these conspiracies? Do you think it was just genuinely they just hit an iceberg? Or
I think
what are
like
your thoughts?
I'm gonna do what I usually do, which is like logical, like
Yeah,
very like logical, and then kind of the more conspiracy side,
yeah,
believing. I think for the more logical, I do think it could be a lot of mistakes just being made overall.
Yes.
Like the person with the key, the co-captain thinking, "Oh, like it's not that big of a deal. Like it isn't something to worry about." Just like so many safety things going wrong, like still taking off when there's a fire going on 3 weeks prior, and just
Yeah.
stuff. I think it's just a lot of tragic mistakes made by a lot of stupidity.
I agree.
Honestly, I think that could really be a big part of it.
Mhm.
And then on the more conspiracy side, I don't think I agree with the insurance thing at all. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
do think I could see the idea of JP Morgan though taking
Mhm.
down all these people and wanting to cause tragedy because like taking down like all those enemies, or at least knowing about it. Like it's just very
Yes.
strange he last minute pulled out. Like did
Mhm.
someone tell him the ship was on fire already? Like did he
Yeah.
know things but didn't want the rest of these people to know it either?
Yes.
I do think that could be a very possible sign on the more conspiracy side of things. I
Mhm.
think that one is a little more tight than some of the other ones that were
Yes.
presented.
And I do completely agree with the idea that JP Morgan, like that, all of that stuff, like I think that could be very true. Like I don't know how conspiracy ish I get into it, but I think
Hmm.
at least the idea that like
He knew something was
he
up.
definitely knew something was up. And even if he did have something against like these three men,
Hmm.
if he knew something was up, he still didn't tell them, which leads me to believe he had an ill fate like meant for them. Like he didn't care if they lived or died. So obviously, he didn't care if
Hmm.
they died in the first place. So he could have it could have been a whole murder plot, death conspiracy with those people.
Yeah,
But I believe
absolutely.
he knew what was happening. I believe he knew there was a fire that was like damaging the hull of the ship, and obviously all of the issues with people not being able to see the ice. Like I think
Hmm.
it all just leads to what happened here. And what happened here actually, it was a whole true thing. People died. Like I believe that.
It's like a real thing that happened,
Yeah.
and I do see how someone could be that evil, I guess, like
Yes.
that in that sense of like I'm not gonna go.
Mhm.
Like I could see that being very possible.
Yes.
It's just I do think it was a lot of stupidity too, which is crazy. But I do think it
Yes.
leaves a lot of mystery still to be desired. And why did they not stop with the fire? Why didn't they
Yes.
break like just like, and also the loose material things? You said they made them out of like not sufficient
Yeah,
materials.
like it just
Like
wasn't anything substantial. And like even if we went to the idea that it could have been the Olympic ship, like it doesn't
hmm
even have to be an insurance thing. They could have literally just put the Olympic ship there in place. And like
yeah.
that could even lead to also just the idea that why this
But
ship
marketing
was
as the Titanic,
yeah, why it
like
was so doomed in the first place because that ship
yeah.
had its own issues.
I feel like this case just gives up such like a big mystery of like the just literally the word why.
Yeah.
Just there's so many whys I want to
Like
know out
there's
of
so many
it.
conspiracies surrounding it because this entire everything that happened here is a complete mystery. Like why did
Hmm.
any of this happen in the first place?
Yeah.
None of this had to happen. But it's so
Yeah.
specific that it just begs the question why? Why in the first
It just
place?
circles back to this thing we always say every time we do a mystery. It's like if someone would have just taken the extra step to
Yes.
care, things could have turned out completely different.
Like, oh, I just can't
Yeah.
even take it. But I guess to this day, the stuff that happened in the Titanic will
Will
remain
remain
a
a mystery.
mystery.
All right. Thank
All
you guys so
right.
much for
Thanks,
watching.
guys. We love you the most.
Yes, and we will
Yes.
see you next week
See you next
for
week.
my
Yes.
case.
Happy
Ooh,
Halloween,
got
folks.
happy Halloween.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.